We begin in Tehran, where there's been a massive turnout for the funeral of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, killed in a U.S. drone strike in Iraq. A crowd estimated in the millions turned out to pay respect to the military leader. Among them, Iran's supreme leader, who wept over the casket. Mourners called for revenge against the U.S., clearly ignoring Soleimani's long history of mass murder and terror. Soleimani's daughter here got a cheer as she threatened an attack on U.S. soldiers in the Middle East. Soleimani's coffin was later taken to a shrine where it was hoisted high above the crowd. Canada is currently leading the NATO mission in Iraq that has been suspended amidst Iranian threats of retaliation for Soleimani's killing. NATO leaders held an emergency meeting on the future of the mission today.
Allies expressed very strong support for the NATO training mission in Iraq because the training mission in Iraq is an important part of the efforts of the global coalition to defeat Daesh and to make sure that Daesh or ISIS is not able to return. And one of the best weapons we have in the fight against international terrorism is to train local forces, build local capacity, and that's exactly what the coalition is doing and what NATO is doing through our training mission in Iraq. We are there by invitation from the Iraqi authorities. We will, of course, relate to, so we have suspended our training mission now because of the security situation on the ground.
But does Canada support the U.S. killing of Soleimani? And if the U.S. is attacked by Iran, does Canada have an obligation to go to war as a U.S. ally according to the NATO Article 5? Let's get the Canadian government's stance on that and the future of the peacekeeping efforts in Iraq and the potential conflict with Iran. Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan joins us now in studio. First of all, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, and congratulations on your...
Thanks. Things are moving quickly in 2020. Let me just start with this. Does Canada support and believe it was legal for the U.S. to kill Soleimani?
Well, I can't litigate something for the U.S., but what I can tell you is that we monitor the security situation quite closely, and we also know that the number of attacks that have occurred in that region. And let's not forget the Iranian proxy groups and what they have caused havoc in that region. And if you just look at Syria alone, the number, hundreds of thousands of civilians that have been killed. And we need to make sure that we as a coalition protect our people and prevent future attacks.
Does Canada regard Soleimani, was he regarded as a terrorist?
Well, if you look at what General Soleimani has been doing, that's not, as I stated, the Quds organization that has been supporting proxy groups in the region have been responsible for thousands and thousands of deaths, plus also putting our own personnel at risk. And so we were always monitoring the situation, and we need to, as a coalition, take action to making sure that the safety of our personnel is always looked at.
But we've not, look, I don't want to sugarcoat. This guy's as bad a guy. He's
Absolutely.
A mass murderer, committed terror. The organization is regarded as a terrorist organization around the world, including in Canada. This is a bad guy.
Yes.
But he's been bad for a long time. He's been killing people for a long time. So I just want to, so Canada supports the U.S. taking this kind of action, using drones to assassinate high-ranking government Iranian officials.
What I can tell you, we support actions when it comes to preventing and deterring attacks on our people and our allies.
Were you was Canada consulted? Did the U.S. say, we're going to take this guy out with a drone attack?
We work very closely when it comes to monitoring the situation. We knew that we have been taking, had threats that pose to our personnel. In terms of, this should not come as a surprise because the U.S. has indicated that they will take action. We didn't have the exact information for the event that took place, but when it comes to working as a coalition, we need to make sure that we send a very strong message of deterrence.
Okay, so you see this as a message of deterrence, but you were not consulted on the specifics before the assassination. But just last thing before I move on, but Canada would support this kind of action, which means the corollary would be there might be other high-ranking Iranian officials who support proxy wars of terror that if the U.S. takes them out, Canada would support. Is that fair to say?
Well, we need, when we started this mission, anytime we deploy our personnel, that when we send them, we got to make sure that we assess the security situation, making sure that our people are properly trained. And when it's our responsibility at the same time to making sure that we deter any type of attacks, because we're in the region to support the Iraqi government.
But deterrence means drone assassinations of high-ranking officials, and that's different than...
But I can't litigate a decision made by the U.S., but what I can tell you as a coalition partner and and our mission in Iraq, we were there to making sure that the security and safety of Iraq itself. But we need to make sure that the coalition is working together and is well protected.
Are we more safe, Minister, now or less safe?
This is one of the things that the situation right now is so fluid. Right now, I mean, obviously hearing commentary from many folks, it's very important right now. Our number one priority is the safety and protection of our people, and force protection is what we're focused on right now. Obviously, this decision has changed the dynamic within Iraq and also in the region, and what we're going to be doing is assessing where the situation is going.
But have you taken extra measures now? Have you informed the military? I want extra precautions, extra vigilance. We know the mission there has been suspended. It's run by a Canadian general, as you know. It's been suspended. Now Stoltenberg from NATO says, no, we got to keep the mission. What have you done since the killing of Soleimani? Extra protection, extra meetings?
So for obviously, first of all, for operational security reasons, I can't give the exact details, but one thing I can tell you is that I spoke with Secretary Esper a number of days ago about the situation. I spoke with the NATO Secretary General this morning, and a number of my counterparts are already on this, that the safety and protection of our personnel, that we have taken the necessary precautions in this regard, and that has already been taken place. Decisions and planning is currently going on to making sure that we are in a good posture, and that we're right now reassessing the situation.
So will the mission continue? Stoltenberg wants it to continue. NATO wants it to continue. It's suspended. Do you believe that Canadian soldiers should be there on the ground in Iraq and maintain that mission?
Well, let's not forget there's two missions there.
Yeah.
We've got the NATO training mission, and we also have Operation Impact as part of the counter-Daesh coalition.
That's right.
And we were there to defeat Daesh and making sure that Iraq can stand up on its own. And the NATO training mission was that good transition piece to provide that institution building aspect that's so importantly needed. But yes, we want to. Our number one priority still is trying to get back into what we were doing there. But we also have to be realistic to see where we're at. So we're taking prudent steps.
The Iraqi parliament says they want all U.S. people out. They've already taken a vote. Would that mean Canada would leave as well?
Well, it's not as simple as that right now. Yes, there is a process that we have to respect within the Iraqi government. They're going through that. Canada and its allies are in a position to saying, okay, first number one priority is making sure that we get through the situation, that we look after our people. But now, assessing the situation of looking at the viability of the various tasks that we're doing, we want to continue the mission that we're there, the counter-Daesh coalition. Because let's not forget, there is a serious threat of resurgence about Daesh in that region. Yes, we have concerns about Iran as well, and what they're doing with the proxy organizations in that region. So all this will be assessed. What we don't want to do is make knee-jerk reaction decisions that doesn't take everything into account. So we do want to continue on with the mission, but we want to do it in a manner that'll actually have the appropriate impact.
Okay, last question. The U.S. obviously, a lot of it depends on what's going to happen if they are allowed to stay in Iraq and what they're going to do. Article 5 of our NATO allies, and you talked about the alliance, means that if one member is attacked, all members have to come to the defense. It was invoked after the war that you fought in Afghanistan, as you well know. If Iran attacks the United States, does Canada have an Article 5 obligation to support the United States, which could, and this is the entanglements question, put us in another war situation? What's your view?
One thing, it's to get into hypothetical questions, but one thing I can assure you, which we have already demonstrated, we are a founding member of NATO. Article 5 is a very important part of that attack on one is attack on all, and Canada lives by its obligation, which we have already demonstrated. But it's very important at the same time, as we look at the various complexities of the situation, that we do not start jumping to any type of conclusions. We need to start looking at ways to de-escalate the situation, because the number one priority is the safety and security of Iraq. Because we can't have a resurgence of Daesh, which is,
right,
they
but
refer
if
to ISIS.
Iran, I know it sounds hypothetical. I agree, but if Iran hits back, and it's not a question of if, it's when, then the question will come to you again, what is Canada going to do? Are you going to support the United States, or is it going to be 2003 when Chrétien said, look, we'll support you in Afghanistan, but we ain't supporting you in Iraq?
But we can't make these type of, once a decision has been made, once we have more information, that's how decisions are made. When we looked at our engagement in the Middle East, we actually increased our support, working very closely with the U.S. and a number of other missions that we have done around the world. It's very important to have a good understanding of what is going on. And Canada, one thing I can assure you, will make sure we have the necessary information, consult our allies, work in a multilateral form to making sure that we have the right impact. But that's what we need to get back into, is to find ways to de-escalate so we can get back to the work at hand. I'm not saying that we can get there, but what I'm trying to say here is that we need to find every effort to do so, and that was my conversation with the NATO Secretary General and my counterparts with our close allies.
All right, I got to leave it there. Mr. Sajjan, great to have you on the program.
Great, thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.